Travel nursing can bring you to places you've never been before. Tell us your story.
Good morning. It's Rita at the Travel Nurse channel once again. It's Tuesday, the 21st, 22nd. Oh yeah, today is TWO Tuesday, 2/22/2022. Too many twos. So you know you're important, travelers, right? You know, or if you're not a traveler and you're thinking about a travel, you are a nurse or a health care person, a tech or a therapist or a doctor or a CNA or any number of healthcare, an MA. You know there is value to what you do, and you would like to think that the people you work for, particularly if you're a traveler there, that they value what you do and the capacity that you're doing it. You're doing it as a traveler. Traditionally, travelers work 13-week assignments. They can vary. They can be very customized for the client, the healthcare facility, the hospital, the doctor's office. They can be designed, for example, research. I did some research one time, and they just needed someone on their staff was gone, and they just needed somebody, I think 2 or 3 days. They weren't even 8-hour days. And quite frankly, it was it was a little boring. You know, I got to study their manuals, but the actual research piece that the nurse needed to do was minimal, and it required a patient. So when the patient came in, I got to do not A through Z, maybe A through F or G, you know, weight, whatever, blood, questions, height, weight, I don't know. So I was needed for that little piece to fill in their need. And so there was value in the fact that I was an RN, that I could follow instructions, that I could be reliable. But in between, say I was there for 5 hours a day, they would want me to come in at 6:30 or 7 in the morning and stay till 12:30 in the afternoon, something like that. Some days it was 2. It was just an unusual thing. But we customized it for that customer and that nurse who happened to be me at the time. I was looking for somebody else to do it so I could get back to my regular work, which was running an agency. But there was a benefit. There was a benefit. Mm-hmm. So obviously, if you're traveling, you're getting hired. There's an understanding of there's value in what you do. But specifically, there are some reasons historically and currently, and that's why I know there's going to be more than 5, of why it is a benefit for facilities, for hospitals, to utilize the travel employee. So let's start with, where should we start? Let's see, I have outlined 5 specifically. Okay, seasonal staffing. That has always been a thing. However, the season has lasted now 2 years because of COVID. Although it has, you know, it has had ebb and flow, right? It was very, very, very intense at the beginning of 2020, right? We're at 2022. Yeah, March 2022. And then throughout that year, and very, very critical that year. And then in 2021, still a lot of episodes, a lot of hospital beds being filled by COVID, a lot of changes in hospital settings, you know, ORs. A lot of surgeries were canceled. A lot of units were changed to be COVID units. Additional beds were added to ICU and so forth. So a big flexing of what was being done in hospitals and doctors' offices and nursing homes and so forth, right? So all that, all those problems created a bigger season. So traditionally in Southern California, for example, the winter season, which could start in September, October, and last through January or so, was the flu season, right? You would enter a hospital and you would see signs. If you have a runny nose or sneezing or cold or whatever, please go home. Consult with your provider and so forth. But unless you're really, really sick, you have a very high fever, you have symptoms besides runny nose and sneezing, please just go home, because the hospitals would be inundated, the ERs would be inundated because it was flu season, right? So seasonal needs. Other areas might have a high season, like resort areas might have a high season in, I need a haircut again. But you know, that's the thing with short hair. When it's long, you just keep letting it go. But when it's short, you got to get it out of your eyes. You got to get it shaped. Okay, sorry about that. So travel nurses can really help with seasonal staffing. For example, the flu season or the high volume holiday season. I imagine some of the San Diego hospitals were a great destination during Easter break or summer vacation. We're a clean city. We have lots to do. We have not just culture, but we have lots of fun water sports. And Hollywood, well, San Diego doesn't have Hollywood. LA has Hollywood, but it's a drive. It's just a drive away. All that kind of stuff, right? Surfing and skating and biking and hiking. Great, great place. And lots of water things, kayaking and diving and lots of lovely, lovely things. And you can pretty much do it year round in San Diego. But for a lot of the population, it would be weekends. It would be summers with the kids off from school and so forth. So that would be a seasonal need, that we might have additional needs for travelers in the healthcare realm. So that's one big reason. Another big reason is that travelers require less benefits. The cost of benefits to employees is pretty intense, particularly an employee that's been there more than a year, more than 5 years, maybe 20 years. What happens is those benefit related costs can rise. So maybe you start off accruing enough PTO or vacation time in the first year to have a week off of paid vacation. By the second year, by X amount of hours, you will have accrued maybe 2 weeks, and it may grow to 3 or 4. Just depends on your facility. So that's a perk of being on staff, but the cost of the traveler is kind of, it's determined in the contract. It's going to be X amount of money for salary and X amount of money for stipends to live and travel and so forth. So it's kind of consolidated, and it doesn't vary. As with a staff person, it's going to change over time, which it should. It's something you're earning. You're part of a working concern and so forth. So that's another big reason for hospitals and facilities. We're talking about why the travelers are important to the employer. And in this case, I don't mean the travel company you're working for, although you're important to them. We can add that. But we're talking about where you are doing your travel assignments. Where is the value and why you're important to hospitals and why you're important to healthcare facilities. This is interesting, and I experienced this not as a travel nurse, but as a per diem nurse. Travel nurses, and sometimes per diem nurses, will make it easier to fill a difficult position. So we have a variety of things we do in healthcare, and particularly in nursing. When you're in nursing school, when you're getting educated, you are learning all the health sciences for the human, right? The wellness of a human and treating the diseases of a human. That doesn't mean it's only for 60-year-olds or it's only for 20-year-olds. No, it means that human from conception to old age is you need to learn about it. You need to learn about childhood diseases. You need to learn about traumas. You need to learn. So you learn the scope, right? Then you make a choice, or you fall into something like I did. My first job was dialysis, which I learned very little about in nursing school. Here I go with my itchiness. It's the dryness of San Diego. Okay, and always have your sanitizer handy wherever you go. we're kind of clean and as germ-free as possible these days. So this practice has started with me a long time ago, but it's intensified. And so I always wash. Okay, what are we talking about? Filling the travelers make it easier to fill the more difficult positions. And for me, that was almost a perk as a per diem nurse. And for some nurses, it is a perk. And for some nurses, it's more of a chore, but it happens. When you take on a travel assignment, you may be taking on a travel assignment to work in an acute setting in a hospital with med-surg and tele patients. So the census now is flexed over to a psych unit, or it's flexed over to the beds are full in the med-surg tele area. So they're holding 2 telemetry patients for admission, and they ask you to go down to the ER and watch those tele patients. So those are the kinds of things that a travel nurse would be asked to do. And a staff nurse may or may not be asked to do that, but because of the contract with the traveler and because of the flexibility of the traveler and or the per diem nurse, it is easier to utilize that travel nurse in those areas. It may even be written into your contract. If, for example, in your last position, maybe a staff position, oh my goodness, you know, there's an old wives' tale that when your nose is itchy, you're going to get in a fight. When your palm is itchy, you're going to get some money. I wish my palm were itchy, it's just my nose. Okay. In the contract, it may say, so say in your last position, you floated between a step down, an ICU, and a telemetry unit. And you take on this tele-med-surg position because you want to travel, that's where the need was, and you thought you'll add, you know, up your skills in med-surg. Many tele patients lean more towards med-surg, and then others in tele lean more towards cardiac, more intense cardiac issues. So you take this med-surg tele position, but it was written into your contract, willing to float to ICU step down, etc. Right? So it's easier to work with the traveler to fill those more difficult positions. I was a per diem nurse for many, many years. I was raising 2 young children, toddlers and preschool. And so I picked and choose my schedule. It was pretty routine. I did Friday, Saturday, Sunday, where I had childcare help. And they would ask me, did I mind going to the cardiac cath lab? Nope. Did I mind going to the pain center? Nope. Did I mind going to the GI lab? Nope. I actually thrived on that. I mean, I knew my meds. I had my skills. They would ask me occasionally to do things that I wasn't as confident in the skills, like, for example, a pediatric med-surg unit. Would I go there? And I'd say, please let them know that I primarily take care of adults. Yes, I am an RN with, 9 years of experience, but at that time, now I'm old and I've had decades of experience. But that, it would be more challenging for me. I would not be as the flow for me would be slower. I would flow slower because I would not only double check, I would be triple checking, I would be quadruple checking my meds and my orders and so forth, because routinely I deal with lots of meds and lots of treatments that were familiar for adults and for seniors, which is another whole topic. You know, is a 50-year-old senior the same as an 80 or a 90-year-old senior? I would say not. Metabolism slow down. Other disease, it's just interesting. That's another subject we can approach someday. Oh, and I'm so excited. I talked to a traveler who's traveling with another traveler, and I've known this nurse for a long time. Hi, Judy. We haven't nailed down a date yet, but I can't wait to talk to you on the broadcast. People are going to be so excited to meet you and hear what traveling means to you. But at any rate, they would ask me to fill these positions, and it was a joy. It was a joy. And if I got to go 2 days in a row or 3 days in a row, even better. And it was, I segued from, being primarily an adult, senior, med-surg tele. I had done critical care. I'd done dialysis, both acute and chronic. And I was adding to my battery of skills all these other areas. So, for example, in the pain center, I was learning what meds were the primary meds that doctors use to, say, block a shoulder. Sometimes somebody would need surgery, but they had other wounds to heal. Maybe they had had a trauma, so they would go to the pain center for blocks. They might be inpatient. Many of the clients we saw were outpatient. At any rate, I did mammograms, I did a variety of things, and then segued into interventional radiology / cardiac cath, but I did more interventional at that point in my career. So filling a difficult position for me was a great joy, but maybe for staff members, say they're in a tele-med-surg unit, they may be working on some research, they may be due for a vacation, so floating for them is difficult. It's not written into the contract. They are, able to float to other tele and med-surg units, but maybe they don't float to a pain center. Maybe they don't float to GI lab or interventional radiology and so forth. So travel nurses make it easier for the facility, for the hospital, for the employer where they're traveling to fill that position without having to hire outside, and then deal with other things, benefits and other things that we mentioned, which save money. Could be a season, could be accident season because it's a full moon. I don't know. That does happen though. A lot more accidents happen too. Okay, so this is something that you don't always think about, but employers think about it. You value your employees, and I'm talking about staff employees, and you work with them and you profit share with them if you can and so forth. But why do you do that? Because of the time and effort and cost of turning over. Somebody's unhappy, or I know some fabulous nurses and other professionals that 5 or 6 years, that's all they stay. They may be happy, they may be, but it's kind of like anything, any process or any habits that we develop. Like I would watch a movie maybe twice, maybe 3 times if I really love it, but that's my limit. And some people, except when I was a kid, we watched The Wizard of Oz every year. When does that come out? At Easter time? And we watched, with the toys, Toyland. We watched Toyland every year at Christmas time, whatever. I watched that repeatedly and repeatedly. And I know my little granddaughter, who will be 2 next month, she likes to watch things repeatedly. She likes them burned into her memory. What a great little mind she has. Now, if anybody mentions dinosaurs, and she is kind of socially shy, But she will have a big conversation because dinosaurs are just huge in her mind right now. But at any rate, the 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 cost of turning over an employee, somebody is leaving or two people are leaving at the same time, the cost can be huge, huge, huge. You can look at different studies online. It can be 10 or 20,000. It can be as high as 65,000 or more, depending on, are we talking about an LVN, an RN, a nurse practitioner, and so forth, a doctor. So the turnover is huge. So if you are a traveler, you have value in that you're preventing a turnover of a staff member by just filling that slot, that seasonal slot, or that, whatever, indefinitely. There is a budget for travelers that is ongoing. So, and the turnover cost, because it requires interviewing, it requires advertising, it requires training, and sometimes at the end of all that, it's not a match. Somebody missed something, or something wasn't disclosed, and 3, 4 weeks, 6 weeks into it, they're gone, and there you go again, accruing more cost. So the traveler nurse allows the client to save a lot there, and that's a big, big value. How many is that? 5, right? No, 4. Let's see. Oh yeah, this is a great, great value. Although I'm sure that although the COVID cases and hospitalizations has decreased, thank God, but travel nurses and travel employees help to reduce the need for overtime pay, because again, there's things written into the contract that during this temporary travel assignment, you will work X amount, but no more than, and so forth. And usually the 12-hour rate does not include overtime. It is included in the salary and the stipend. So, so there's a cost savings there for overtime. Whereas if they didn't bring in a traveler and they were running short staff, they'd be begging, borrowing, and stealing nurses left and right from within the staff, and having huge costs at the end of each week and each pay period for all that overtime. So you have a nurse that works traditionally 3 days a week is working routinely 4 days a week because they need to fill a position, because of the turnover. We talked about that in the last, in the fourth one, the turnover costs. They don't want to hire in a rush, and it's never a good idea to hire in a rush. You want to get the right person because you want to avoid the turnover, right? So same thing. You don't want to pay overtime, but what can you do when you're short-staffed? What can you do? You can get a wonderful, valuable traveler on staff. So, so those are 5 things. I thought of something as I was chatting here. Oh, I didn't open up my comment line. Can I see a comment? I don't see it. It's marked. I'm sorry. I meant to open that. Hello. How are you? Nisha Bardwaj. I'm very well. Thank you. I had a hip replacement just about not quite 3 months ago, and have improved quite a bit. I wouldn't say 100%, but I would say 90%. I'm slow. I'm a little slow. And in my walking and movements, because I'm being super careful. Okay, but my healing has been fantastic. So nice of you to check in. I'm sorry it took me a few minutes there to remember to turn that light on. Okay, I was thinking there's another reason that travelers would be of value. So many. If you want to tune in and say why you think, if you are a hospital or a facility, healthcare facility, nursing home, etc., and you utilize travelers, let us know what you think the value is, because I think there's a lot of cost value. I think there's, I think it can free up staff to do the things that aren't maybe the daily things, but maybe weekly or monthly, or research things that they're working on. It can keep your staff happy when you have a difficult position to fill. So let's review the 5 things, right? Travelers help with seasonal staffing. Let's do it this way. 1, travelers help with seasonal staffing. Travelers help by saving on benefit-related cost for the facility, because they have a contract, boom, and they don't have to accrue PTO, etc. Travelers make it easier to fill the difficult positions. 4, travel nurses allow for a reduced 4. There's 4. Wait, let's do 4 like that. 4. Travel nurses allow for reduced turnover costs, which I said can be more than $65,000. You have to advertise. You have to interview. You have to cover the slot while they're gone. You have to pay out unused vacation and PTO and so forth. The cost can be incredible. And then you can go through rehiring somebody and lose them shortly thereafter. Boom, the cost goes up again. And then finally, nurses that travel reduce the need for overtime pay. So there's 5 basic reasons why the client really benefits by using travelers. The other thing is, a really good traveler, their attitude, their enthusiasm, their knowledge, that gets shared. While you're a traveler, as much as you're a guest, you are considered staff during those 13 weeks. And others benefit from your knowledge and your good attitude and your talents and so forth. So there's another one. I'm sure the longer we sit here and I think about it, there'll be more and more. So that's 6 of the many benefits that allow facilities and hospitals and so forth to benefit by using travelers. And quite frankly, during COVID, there would have been, oh my gosh, it would have been so much more devastating did we not have this travel nurse process in place. Thank goodness, thank goodness. And we learned to really jam, right? Really hit the ground running and get things done as quickly as possible with credentialing, with licensing, with travel and so forth. What a crazy time we've been through in the last 2 years. So I wanted to mention that. I also want to throw in that the needs for travelers are fantastic. There's many, 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 many opportunities for you. I have another, let's see. Well, you can come to www.travelnursechannel.com. You can go there and see what the clients and sponsors are looking for. The variety of nursing work for travelers is pretty fantastic. And so there's many that now, vaccination clinics, COVID testing, just so many things in the schools, in the occupational areas, in the hospitals. So there's many, many. I'm sorry, I probably should use a handkerchief. Gotta go digging for one. I have bandanas maybe, because tissues are sort of linty, aren't they? I might just be, every time I rub my nose, add more dust in there. Silly girl. Silly old girl, huh? Yeah, there are lots of opportunities. There are more staffing jobs than ever. There are some opportunities now for getting into an area that you're interested in, even without the experience, where that was always like a tele nurse goes to tele, and a rehab nurse goes to rehab, and a OB/GYN nurse goes only to those areas. Well, now the need is great, and they're saying, yes, we want a year or two of experience, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in this genre. And then that opens even more doors. So lots and lots of work out there, lots and lots of reasons to value yourself and what you do, and lots of reasons for hopefully you realize why you are needed and why you are valued after our little discussion today. Thank you. Oh, here. Our travel book. Hello. Hi. Thanks for checking in. You know, folks, you have a lot to say, and you have, if you're a nurse or your friends are nurses and so forth, please tell them about the Travel Nurse channel, because guests are welcome. If you are a recruiter, if you are thinking about traveling, if you have traveled, if you've written about traveling, if you've written anything in the healthcare realm, please check in with me, 800-737-6518, or email me, Rita, R-I-T-A, at travelnursechannel.com, Rita at travelnursechannel.com, and you can be a guest on the show. It's super casual. I think that we just want a nice place, a homey place for those that are away from home, for travelers, and a place for those that employ travelers to connect, to let travelers know what's going on with them, what they have to offer, and etc. Let's see. What's the value? There's so much value. Oh yeah, you know, a lot of times, okay, cleaning up my messy hair. A lot of times when you're on staff, it's, yes, this is your job. You work in the ICU. We expect you to be here for, you know, if you're full-time, 3 shifts a week, that's 36 hours. But then they need to incorporate a full-time 40-hour. So that is made up in meetings or stocking or managing something additional. And that would be, when you're on staff, that can be difficult, because the reason you do the 12-hour shifts is that so you can manage the rest of your life in your time off, and then you have to make up those hours. And how do you do that? Do you do that from home? Generally not. Generally, you have to go into the facility another day or two. Say there's a 1-hour meeting here, and then there's staying to do something after a shift, which is exhausting because you put in 12.5 hours. So there are those little wrenches to the full-time staff position, but it's important. It's important as, you know, being part of the team. Meetings can be very, very beneficial, because if everybody isn't aware of what's going on, they can't help one another and so forth. So I understand all that, but the traveler can just focus on the work, you know, can just do all of that, and the manager can take her staff and do what she needs to do, because she's got to travel. They got to cover some of those things. So that's another piece. You know, the 12-hour shifts total up to 36 hours a week. And what do you do when you have to meet a 40-hour criteria for full time? So there's those little pieces to iron out that is important for the facility, important for the group, but a traveler does not necessarily have to do all that, although he or she may be very good at it. They may ask you if you want to do that, but yeah, those extra 4 hours to complete every week, or maybe 8 hours in a 2-week period, maybe you would come in for 8 hours and be a relief nurse or something. It's tricky and complicated and costly, but it's the nature of working 12-hour shifts and of hospitals meeting the criteria that they need to meet for to meet the labor laws and so forth. Yeah, I do remember many years of being on staff and the difficulties of adding an hour here and there for meetings or going in on your day off. Back in the day, they didn't offer childcare, and you have 2 toddlers, you can't bring them to a hospital, for a 1-hour meeting. And then it's tough. It's a lot of finagling and planning and then backup planning and so forth. So thank you so much for tuning in. That's Nursing or Travel Bug saying hello, and Nisha saying hello. And I'm glad you found us, and tell your friends. We're here. The broadcast occurs every Tuesday between 10 and 11 Pacific Standard Time. The website is www.travelnursechannel.com. We're a conduit for anybody in the travel healthcare industry, a conduit for those that employ them and those that do the work, and visit it sometime. It's fun and it's free. It's free to check out. And if you're interested in being a sponsor or one of our clients, it's not very costly. And we have thousands and thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers. So that's exciting. And we welcome you. What else can I tell you today? We had a holiday yesterday, and I was out early. I'm still doing physical therapy. I have quite the battery of exercises now, which I'm going to do right after this broadcast. So I was out early, so I ran a lot of errands, and I have birthdays coming up for family members, and things to do. Get to the bank and get to the post office, which, silly me, they were closed. So, but I did get to do some shopping, and I was silly there too. I should have just gotten on my Google to find out where I could get this one gift. Instead, I went to 3 stores, and then as I was traveling across to another town to find them, I was like, oh boy, I should have checked first, because now I've put on the miles, both on my legs and on my tires, and the 4th store fortunately had what I wanted, so, and the size I needed and so forth. But yeah, I know a lot of people do everything on Amazon, but it was sort of fun to be out and about on a holiday, and I use my mask when I go into stores and when I go into supermarkets and any place where there's a lot of people that I don't know. And if I'm outside, it comes right off. But if I'm going inside, it's still a good plan. But in San Diego, the mask is in a lot of places being abandoned. In my PT, I have to wear it, and that is so, it makes me hotter when I'm working out and talking to my physical therapist. It drives me nuts. I probably should try. I don't know if the paper's better than the fabric, but yesterday I had fabric and I really was uncomfortable doing my exercises. But what I wanted to say is about a President's holiday being more or less a national holiday, a bank holiday, that there were a lot of people out and about. It was nice. And I think also maybe because we're expecting rain, which is like a big deal. Other parts of the country, rain is like, it rains on and off whenever it wants to. But in Southern California, in a particularly dry, arid place, we don't get a lot of rain. We welcome it. We spend a lot of money on water out here. And so we knew it was coming. The winds were out. The sun was in and out all day. And we didn't get much rain. Maybe today or tomorrow it'll finally come in. But I'm thinking maybe that's why a lot of people are like, oh, let me get to the store and, do all this stuff. So, my dear travelers, thank you for what you do. Know that there is so much value. I know you know some of it, but I thought it was good to point out reasons why customers are going to continue to need you. You are a great resource and a great cost benefit to the many clients that will use you. And there's more reasons to use travelers than ever. MAs, RNs, LVNs, CNAs, all of you are needed. Technicians, therapists, growing population, various things occurring in health and wellness that require skilled professionals. So there's always going to be that need and that growing need. So, and thank you for those that check in. Please check in more often. Call me anytime or email me. It's Rita, R-I-T-A, at travelnursechannel.com. That's about it. I'm going to sign off with our little nurse brand on a sidecar. And I'll see you next Tuesday, maybe with a guest. And check us out. We're on Facebook and YouTube. And I often will post something in there if something interesting is occurring in healthcare. So check us out there as well. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Travel nursing can bring you to places you've never been before. Tell us your story.